Measuring yourself is easy in some respects, like your age, your height, your weight, but not so easy in others, like your character, integrity, and maturity. But those are the real measurements we should be focusing on. Your quantitative info doesn't define who you are, it's your qualitative info that does. But growth doesn't just happen. It takes intentional accountability on your part. So welcome to the Measuring Post, a place where we can learn and grow together. All right, episode number 2 of the Measuring Post, the video format. This is a slightly different setup. I'm using my remote Zoom call style setup. And today I got a really good friend, just like my last interview. This is a former work friend, somebody that I used to work with in Denver radio. We met about 13 years ago, I would say, maybe even longer, probably about 15 years ago. And he's one of my dearest lifelong radio buddies, Mr. Senen, a.k.a. SLiM Rodriguez. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing great, and I just want to thank you so much for having me. You know I love you, and what's crazy is I'm actually sad that I'm just your work friend and that we really have not spent time since we haven't worked together the way we should, because I love you and you're a really good dude, man. And it's one of those things that happens when people stop working together, is you stop talking and communicating. And some of the people that mean the most to you, that you really care about, are people that you meet through work. It's one of the places that we are able to bond with people regularly. And then that separates, and then you just don't talk to each other again. And this isn't the first time that it's happened with friends. It's being in the radio business. It's like every time you leave a radio station, you leave that whole family, that whole group of people. And oftentimes you don't talk to a lot of them ever again. So I'm so glad that we still see each other and talk.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. It's been far too long, and we used to see each other every day, and every trip down the elevator was with my man SLiM, and, you know, there's so many great memories, and it's one of those things I think you don't ever intend for, like, it's like a breakup, if you will, like a romantic breakup, but, you know, I got kids and then moved on to a different career field, and then you're so busy doing 9 million different promotions a month, you know, you kind of... It's easy to get lost in that, but I definitely want to make it a point to be better at that. And I am humbled that a radio legend like yourself, I don't often get out radio voiced on my own show. And if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Mr. SLiM here. But you were such an amazing man.
I disagree there. We would always talk about you and your $1 million voice. And the fact that you're not, you should be doing movie trailers and television commercials, and you know, I should be hearing you when I turn on Fox television. It should be like, and tonight on Fox 31, you know, it should be you.
if you know a guy, you know, give him my number. I'm open for work.
For real though, right?
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, when I first met you, and it wasn't anything personal about you, but I hated your guts. And let me tell you why. It wasn't because I didn't like you as a person, but when you first came on to Max Media, which is the station that we used to work for together, I really wanted that on-air position. And I was like, you know, you've earned it. You've been working up your way the ranks, and you got the golden voice. And then all of a sudden, as I'm applying for that promotion internally, they bring in SLiM, a.k.a. the KS1075 King, the former San Francisco treat, the radio star from California. And I hated you, man, because you took my job. But then as I got to know you, it was like I could see why they brought you on, man. You're such a cool dude, and your connections in the industry are amazing. And honestly, it was just a blessing to work with you and learn from you. You taught me so much over the years.
Oh, man, I love you. I suck. I suck in so many ways, not only on the radio, but also just like I cut you off. Man, I'm sorry. You know, and it's not the first time, but I can tell you, I've been there, and how I ended up in Denver was literally, I worked at my favorite radio station growing up, the one that I dreamed of being on the radio at the time. It's still called 106 KMEL in San Francisco. And I was so excited to be there. I worked with Sway from MTV. He was doing afternoons, and I would be his band guy, and I'd be calling it, Sway, I can get more women to blow me kisses out here on the phone than you can get to call at the radio station. You know, and we would do all kinds of fun, silly things and so on. But I wanted to be the night guy at KMEL so bad. And I was like, I have to wait for somebody to die before I'm ever going to get this job. And that's literally how I was like, I have to leave California. And that's how I ended up in Denver because I so desperately wanted a job on the radio. And it was the same thing. It was like, I'm working here. And it's just not going to, it wasn't going to happen for me in San Francisco. So I was blessed to come here to KS 107.5. And then I was very blessed to end up coming over to Max Media and Hot 107.1. And I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am sorry. Forgive me. What can I do
You know,
now?
it's all fun to look back at now, but honestly, it couldn't have worked out any way better than it did because it made us friends, man. And
Yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier that we kind of have drifted just because of, time and not being able to see each other regularly, but we spent a lot of time together outside of work. We hung out, we
Hmm.
barbecued together. You know my kids, you know my wife,
Hmm.
my family, my parents for goodness sakes. And we had so many great memories that if you didn't come in and break my heart and steal my job, I would have never met you, man. And that would have been a tragedy because now it's like what I've realized being in radio for 20 years myself now is it's a pretty small community,
Hmm.
surprisingly. It's
Hmm.
funny. All of a sudden you see a guy you worked with 10, 20 years ago and now he's in California or Texas or New York or wherever the radio world took him on his journey. And it's been really cool that me and you both got to stay in Denver the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm very happy about that. And we had some crazy fun times doing those promotions. As me as the promotions director, I used to get to send SLiM out and do all the stuff that I wanted him to suffer through because he stole my
Yeah.
job on air.
And I
So,
did.
yeah, he did it with a smile on his face, and you were such a pro. And then we got to bring in other legends like Cha Cha, who's no longer in the industry, and even like the Gina Lee Fuenteses, and
Yes.
and some of these people that just still are out there crushing it. And man, it's a time in my life I'll truly treasure.
Man, working with you is it's a fun thing. And actually, my boss was saying you should come apply for, over here some stuff.
Well, if the podcasting and the modeling career doesn't work out, you might be
Uh,
hearing from me.
and I really love your current Facebook photo, my model friend.
Yeah, I finally had to update that headshot from 1997. It's
It's
kind of
funny.
funny because my dad's a mortgage broker, and he had this headshot. It was literally like from 97. And now it's 2024, and he was trying to put that on his website, and I'm like, dude, you can't put that on there. That's like 30 years ago. Like you
That's
got
my
to.
insurance agent. No, no, she's a wonderful woman, but that picture she's got is from 1998.
Yeah, it's like, if you ran into her on the street or him on the street, you wouldn't even recognize him because now he's a grandpa. It's
Uh-huh,
like,
uh-huh.
yeah. So my wife finally told me time to retire the old headshot and get with the now. And I
Uh-huh.
gotta, you can't see it too much, but I gotta let my gray come through. And
That's right.
you know,
Those are
that's all
wisdom
right.
hairs, given to you from your children.
Oh man, Luke, you remember Luke as a little guy?
Uh-huh.
He's my son Luke. He is a senior now, brother.
That's what I was
Senior.
thinking. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking
Yeah.
a couple hours ago. I was like thinking about him.
Yeah, he's big and he's bigger than me, man. Like I'm not very tall, clearly, but man, he's a beefcake. Yeah, it's been awesome. But yeah, he's my daughter who's turning 11. She's the one giving me more of the grays. She's
Jeez, that means
11 going on 30.
I haven't seen her since she was like one. Dude, I mean, I know we just bumped into each other a couple of weeks ago, but let me know when I can come by and hang out with the family over there at the house. I,
Oh yeah, man, you're
I
always
promise not
invited,
to be
brother.
embarrassing anymore. I won't be embarrassing anymore.
You know what? You were never embarrassing, and I know that you had some struggles. When we worked together, and
Mhm.
that's the reason why you're on my show today. This is,
Mhm.
of course, the measuring post, and what that means is that we're finding ways to measure up in life as adults, as humans, as individuals who are trying to find ways to be better every day. And we've all made mistakes, and we've all had our ups and downs. And one of the things that you really struggled with when I knew you and we worked together was alcohol. What was that monkey on your back?
Yeah.
And you have been sober for what, 9 years?
No, it'll be 8 years in a week. On September 11th, it'll be 8 years. I've been sober since 2016, September 11th, 2016. And oh,
Congratulations, first and foremost, man. That is a
thank you,
really, really tough thing to do.
thank
And
you.
yeah,
And you saw a lot of my real worst times in my addiction. Definitely were within the last 5 to 10 years of my struggles. Um, and I mean, when I got my DUI, you're the man who made sure I got to work every day. I had no car, and you picked me up every day and got me to work and home and to my breathalyzers. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for that time because I mean, people don't understand. Like, you made it so easy um, for me to get through that DUI, and I really appreciate you for that. Um, but and but this isn't on you. What I need to say is my DUI was too easy, and that wasn't on you. It was everything. Like, I was blessed to have the world's easiest DUI, blessed by God, but it didn't make it easier for me to quit drinking. And
yeah,
I probably really started to dive into addiction with drugs in the mid '90s. When I moved to Denver in 2001, it was a blessing to get me away from a lot of the drugs I was doing at the time, because you get away from your dealer, you get away from the drugs. And I came here, and for a couple of years, I was just having um, a good time, enjoying life, being on the radio and doing radio. And then through the clubs and bars, I started to dive deeper and deeper into my addiction again. And that became from clubs and bars to drinking every day to drinking at home. And when you met me back in 2010, at that point, I was drinking every night on the radio. I was drinking at home. I was drinking during the day, and I was drinking to get by. And at that time, I used to be really kind of proud of it. I'd tell people that I was Denver's alcoholic, and I can outdrink you. And I don't know if I can actually outdrink anybody, but I sure would try to, act like I was just the life of the party and alcohol was all good. And you definitely got to see a lot of that. I remember going to your house once and stayed the night, and I don't know why I was dressed in a suit or in dress shoes, but I left the next morning, and I might have had more of your alcohol that was in the house because nobody's watching. I'm drinking, and if there's a bottle sitting on the table and there's nobody in the room, please believe at 8 o'clock in the morning I was going to start drinking again because there's nobody to tell me no. So I remember getting pretty re-drunk in the morning from already still being drunk and leaving your house and saying I was going to walk home. And during that walk, I think I stopped at a liquor store. I got more liquor. I got lost. I didn't know where I was leaving your house. Um, I eventually fell over drunk on the street, and a mom and her kid pulled over and found me and called the police and waited with me till a police officer came. And I was once again so blessed that this police officer put me in his car and drove me home in the middle of the day. It was probably like, I was definitely been a few hours that I was wandering the street because I eventually fell over. But it was like noon when this police officer dropped me off at home. And I just struggled more and more with alcohol, here and on the radio. And alcohol became something where it was morning, noon, and night, where you're drunk when you wake up in the morning, but you're also hungover. So you just stop at the liquor store on your way to work. And I would always figure that, hey, I can just tell somebody, y'all know I'm an alcoholic. So I just smell like the alcohol from last night. So when you're like, why do you smell, like you've been drinking at noon, which I was, I'll go across the street to the liquor store, drinking at noon.
yeah. So right where our radio station was across the street, everyone, the smoking area down by where the vehicles were, there was a little street you could cross, and over there was the no gas station, and right next to that was
Liquor
the
store.
liquor store. And we would always see the little trail of vodka shooters from the store back to the
Oh,
smoking
yeah.
area. And it was like breadcrumbs, but we knew SLiM was down here because we saw his trail. But I think you hit on a point there that I think a lot of people don't understand when it gets to the issue of addiction and how you recover from that. If you never have to feel like the rock bottom, it's easy for you to justify continuing on. And like the fact that you were really blessed to have easy DUI, as far as
Yeah.
easy in the respects that it didn't hinder your daily life. You know, you didn't really feel the burn. So what do you think was that one event or that moment of clarity where you said, that's it,
So
enough's enough?
it really started to pile up where I was so drunk and so depressed and so like ill from alcohol regularly that I wanted a change. Like I knew I had a problem and I wanted to change in 2016, but I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And so one day though, I come to work and I'm just in this screw it kind of attitude. And it's a Saturday and I have to do my afternoon Saturday shift. And I come to work and I have, I believe, four shooters because they were in between my fingers like that. So
Yeah.
four shooters in my hand and a cigarette in this hand and with a lighter. And I walk into this building. I'm in my office right now of the radio station. And I walk into this building and I walk into the production studio down the hall to start voice tracking. And I open the door and inside there is one of my coworkers at the time. And she's sitting there. And she turns and she looks at me. She's like, "What are you doing here?" And I got my hands full of alcohol and my cigarette and my lighter. And I'm like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I came to do my shift." And I throw everything down on the table. And she was like, "Whoa, you going to do your shift like that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's Saturday. I don't care." Right. And she was like, I don't think that's all right. And I was like, "Well, I'm fine." Right. And then I picked up my cigarette, I put it in my mouth, and I lit my cigarette right there in the building, down the hall, blow the smoke into the air. And she looks at me, she goes, "What the F do you think you're doing?" And she gets up and walks out the building. And I'm like, wait, hey, stop, I'm sorry. Right? And I put the cigarette out. And by the way, everybody, I quit smoking now. I don't smoke at all. But I put the cigarette out. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, I've known this woman a long time. I'd already known this woman for like 12 years. I was like, man, I really disappointed her. Like, I feel bad. She comes back upstairs, and she walks in, and she's somebody who had dealt with addiction herself and was in recovery. And she walks in, and she goes, "You know, you have a problem." And I was like, "What you talking about?" She goes, "You have a problem." And I was like, "I know." And she was like, "Well, you going to do anything about it?" I was like, "I tried." She was like, "You need to do something about it." And I was like, "Well, I tried." And she goes, "You got to leave." And I was like, she was like, "I'm working right now and I don't want you in here." And I'm like, "All right." So I'll walk out of the studio and I go down the hall and I'm just sitting there thinking, and I'm like waiting for her to finish so that I can go do my work. And when she comes back out and she was like, "You know, you got a problem." And I was like, "I know." And she leaves and I go in there and pretty depressed. I'm sure eventually I just got drunk and did my shift and so on. But it really, really messed with me. And I was like, I've been caught at work. I got a problem.
It's kind of like that when your mom catches you, and it's not that
Yep,
she's mad, she's disappointed. It's that
yep,
sort of feeling.
yep.
Yeah.
And I should also back up. So my mother came to visit me in July of this time. And we want to say this is around August now, but my mom had come to visit in July. And while she was here, she talked about how drunk I was and how much of a mess I was and how destroyed my house was from my alcoholism and how dirty it was and how filthy and gross and my fridge was nasty and just everything was a falling apart drunk mess. And she stayed an extra week to clean my house. And while she was staying, she said to me, she goes, if I ever come here again and it looks like this, she goes, I'm never coming back again. And she talked to me about, she was like, and I was like, I'm going to refinance my house. I was like, so that I can pay it off when I'm 62. And she was like, the way you drink, you're not going to live to be 62.
Yeah.
And those were things that really ate away at me. So when I was leading into, when I was like, things were already starting to really affect me, what my mother said then really affected me. So when I got caught that day here in the office and it was like, you know, you got a problem, I knew I had a problem. And I was already facing this problem and, trying to ignore it. But I like the number one person I had disappointed was my mom already. So I was already being eaten away. She had really seen how I was like really getting to rock bottom. At this point in my life, I was drunk 24/7 all the time. There was not a moment not drunk. You would come to my house and behind my couch over the arm, you would just find shooter bottles, a pile,
I
like a
remember.
mountain,
Yeah.
of shooter bottles. All right. And I was proud of them to some extent. I don't think it's much near the end. Um, and so the next day I come to work and one of my other coworkers says, "Hey, come into the office," my program director. And he says, "Hey, little birdie told me you had an issue over the weekend." He goes, "I'm not upset." He goes, "But do you think maybe you have a problem?" And I was like, "She told you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, I have a problem. I just don't know what to do about it." And he was like, "I understand, I also struggle with drinking, and I just know I'm here for you if you want to do anything about it." So then the little birdie that told on me came the next day and she was like, "So you gonna do anything about that?" And I was like, "I want to, I just, I don't know how." She goes, "Well, just try." So every day from then on, I was like, "I'm gonna quit drinking. I'm gonna quit drinking." And every day, no matter how much I said, "Today is the day I'm going to quit drinking," at some point in that day, I ended up at the liquor store getting drinks. She started bringing me to meetings, and I went to a few meetings. And afterwards, I'd be like, "Can you stop me at the liquor store? I'm shaking. I need to get a shooter." I wasn't shaking, but I could start to get it going. Oh, I really think I need just one now that we're done with this meeting. So I still ended up drunk. This went on. I would tell you it went on for months, but the truth of the matter is it probably only went on for about 2 weeks. And I was struggling every day. And right before I quit, it was a Friday, and I was like, "Man, I want to quit. I want to quit." I came to work, and I got so drunk at work on that Friday that at 10:30 in the morning, I was sitting in my car, and I didn't know how I could get upstairs to do my job because I was sway drunk. Like, you can't move. So this is like September 8th or something like that, 2016, something like that. So then I got drunk again on that Saturday, really, really drunk. And a friend of mine called me and she was like, also a coworker, and she was like, "What do you need to like get yourself sober?" And I was like, "I need to make it 24 hours. I can't get through 24 hours. If I can get through 24 hours, I can get through 48 hours." So she said, "All right, well, I'm going to come tomorrow and I'm going to hang out with you on Sunday." This is Sunday, September 11th. So I'm going to hang out with you for the day. And I said, "Yes, please do that. Please do." Um, so she came and all day we hung out. We went to a park. We went on a walk. We went to lunch. We hung out and hung out and hung out until about 7 or 8 o'clock when she said, "Hey, I got to go now. I got to go to work tomorrow. We got work tomorrow and I need to get some rest. So you going to be all right? You going to be good?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. You know what? I got this. Thank you so much. I totally got this." And she left. And I sat on my bed, and I want to say it was about 8 o'clock. And I sat on the edge of my bed in my bedroom upstairs, not in a place of relaxation like my living room, sitting in front of the TV where I could zone out, but in my place where I could just sit there and think about what do I want to do right now. And what popped in my head is, man, I'm gonna go to the liquor store. If I can just have one. We made it pretty far through the day. I'm just gonna have one. And I'll tell you, I didn't really become a man of faith until the last probably 2 or 3 years, close to 3 years, where I started following God and Jesus. But back then, I still was somebody who would pray and ask God for things. I just didn't go to church or truly follow a walk of faith. But I remember being like, God, man, I just want to get through 24 hours, man. Help me out. And then the craziest thing happened. So I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and I'm like, just going to go to the liquor store. And my phone rings. And it's one of my really good friends from high school. And a week earlier, I had made a post on Facebook that I was an alcoholic and I'm struggling with alcohol and I need to get sober and I need help and I'm going to do this. And that was 1 week earlier. And my friend called me and I hadn't spoken to her since I was at her wedding in California, which was probably 10 plus years earlier. And we had probably gone to school with each other 10 years before that. I mean, I graduated 30 years ago. So she called me and she's like, hey, Senen, how you doing? And I'm like, Angela, what's up? I haven't talked to you in forever. And she was like, hey, I was just calling to tell you I saw your post on Facebook about your struggles with alcohol and how you're trying to get sober. And I just wanted to call and tell you that when I read that, it really hit me really hard. And I sat down with my husband tonight and I told him I'm an alcoholic and I'm struggling with alcohol and I need help. And I just wanted to call you and tell you that you sparked that in me to share that with my husband so that I can get help. And I said, Angela, you don't know, but right now I'm sitting on the edge of my bed. And all I want to do is go to the liquor store and get a shooter and get some vodka. But you called me right now at just the right time. And she was like, I just needed to tell you what was going on. And we proceeded to talk about my struggles with alcohol and her struggles with alcohol. That conversation turned into talks about her kids and how her kids are doing, where she was in life and how she was living in Washington, D.C. Started talking about high school and how she taught me to do the running man. We just started talking about just life. And we talked and we talked. And she was like, hey, it's really late here now. It's almost like it's past 2 a.m. She goes, I have to go to sleep because I have work in the morning. I said, Angela, thank you so much for calling me. I love you. And, let me know how you're doing. And let's talk again soon. And I said, and you got this. You're gonna succeed at this. And she said, and you do too. And I said, thanks, Angela. And we got off the phone. And I hung up the phone and I looked at the radio that I had that had the clock on it. And it said it was 12:05. And I said to myself, the liquor store is closed.
And you made it 24. You made it
And
24
I made it
hours.
20 hours. And
That's so beautiful.
I don't have to go to the liquor store. And I'm not somebody who went to the bar to go get drunk. So I was done. I was finished for the night. And I got in bed and I went to sleep. And I came to work the next morning. And I walked down this hallway. And I told everybody in every single office, I said, it's been 36 hours that I haven't had a drink. And some people were like, hey, man, I didn't expect applause because, man, 36 hours on a guy who I could go 36 hours without drinking when I wasn't trying to quit. You try to go 36 hours when you say it's your last drink and it ain't happening.
Yeah.
And I came the next day and I probably said, it's been 50 hours. Whatever it was, I would count off the exact hours. I say to somebody in the office. And every single day I came and counted that off to somebody. And during that time, I would go home every single day and I would lock the door to my house because sure enough, I could still go to the liquor store if I wanted, but I'd go home every single day. And I thank God. I'd be like, God, man, thank you so much. And I would clean my house and I would scrub my house. And I locked myself in my house to scrub my house every day for probably at least the first 10 days. That's all I did was I learned secrets on scrubbing bath tiles and bathtubs and getting water stains out of your head. I mean, I learned all kinds of stuff about these things because I was like, I need to do something every day to keep
Yeah.
myself off of alcohol. I went to some meetings. My friend the little birdie who caught me, right? She took me to some more meetings. We went to some meetings. Meetings weren't really my thing. I appreciate meetings. I have respect for meetings. Um, I think that there are so many pathways to recovery. There's not one way to do it. What works for somebody, if praying to the Lord, if gets you there, if being locked up gets you there, if rehab gets you there, if sober living gets you there, if 12-step gets you there, celebrate recovery. There are so many pathways. That ain't even just that was like 5 or 6. There's endless. So, but um, it's just been one day at a time. I can tell you when I remember like 90 days in being like, this is crazy. And thinking that, that was the longest amount of time possible at that time. And, 90 days has become a year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, I don't even think about the time now. I know on Thanksgiving Day, I believe if I'm right, I have 3,000 days on Thanksgiving Day, which is the weirdest thing. Weird.
I always
So,
loved seeing on social media you were doing it for a while pretty consistently. I know as you get further into sobriety, you might not do it as often, but you would do like your sobriety counter where it
uh-huh.
says, 3 years, 2 months, 4 days, 11 minutes, 12 seconds, or whatever the number
I'll
was.
be doing it on the 11th. It'll be coming up. I will do it on the
Yeah, no,
11th for
that's
8 years.
that's why I brought it up. It was inspiring. I never had that issue with addiction that you did, but I had it in my family. I've had close friends who have had that struggle, and seeing that someone can recover, that's such an inspiration. I think, you had a cool point to your story earlier when you said Angela called you. Your words online sparked her drive to get sober herself. And then in turn, she called you and re-sparked your desire to get sober. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the passing of two ships, but like, or I guess like a passing of the torch and then passing it back. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
such a cool story to like think about what can actually make a difference in someone's life. And sometimes it's just that one word, that one phone call,
And,
that
and
one message on Facebook that can
yeah.
really turn someone's life around.
And, I initially made that post on Facebook because I wanted to be held accountable, was why I
Mm-hmm.
told everybody I was an alcoholic and I had a problem and I was struggling and that I was going to quit because I wanted people to see me and be like, you're holding a drink. Why are you holding a drink? Like you said, you have a problem and, you got an issue. So I wanted to be held accountable. And so later on, I want to say at that 3 month phase, I went on the radio and I think I stopped the music for like 15 minutes without my boss's permission and told them everything I just told you guys,
Yeah.
or everything I just told you. And from there, I got a lot of phone calls from people who were like, man, you made me stop on the side of the road and think about my own addiction issues and struggles, and, just like Angela taught me that, I learned that from other people that when you talk about these things, you can help so many other people. So when I see somebody go on social media and say, hey, man, I'm celebrating 500 days sober, I tell them, thank you for sharing that because you don't know who that's going to reach and who that's going to help. That you share it for
Absolutely.
yourself, but thank you for sharing that for all the people that are going to see that. And uh, we used to recover anonymously, and that's okay. I have no problems with the recovering anonymously, but I love watching people recover out loud because it helps other people when you do it. So when you have the strength to recover out loud and you can do that, man, you're helping other people. So if you recover anonymously, man, that's powerful too, and I love and respect that. but those people that do it out loud and they're helping other people, man, I love that just as much. It's awesome in all ways, you
Yeah,
know.
so that kind of leads me to what I want to get into next. First of all, I think that's cool that you said it that way. I think it's really important to do it out loud. Now, obviously, if you want the privacy,
Yes,
again, more
there's
power to
times
you.
of privacy. There's times.
But being vulnerable and showing that you need help is true strength in itself, right? To say, I need somebody to help me through this, or like you said,
I'm not
hold me
okay.
accountable. So I like what you took from this experience and you learning how to live sober again, which I'm sure is like learning how to walk again. It's like a whole new vibe on how to spend your free time. And you said that you started by just cleaning, just keeping the mind busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love one thing that you guys might not know about SLiM is he is also a very seasoned podcast host. And him and his team put together a show called SOS, which is sharing our stories, and it's
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to recovery, whether it's from drugs or alcohol, a combination of both. And I'm sure even other things that you can be addicted to, whether that's
Yes,
sex,
absolutely.
whether that's stealing,
Yep.
whether it's gambling. You know, humans in general have this
Money.
innate desire to perpetuate bad habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about SOS.
So I started sharing our stories for the same reason that most people in recovery do things like this, which is you want to give back. You want to help other people. You want to see other people achieve their goals in their recovery. And that's really just about it. The whole goal of this program is about each week, if we can reach one person and support them in their recovery, and get them excited about their recovery. Maybe they don't, feel confident about it, or help them to recover out loud. And the program is about bringing in somebody each week to just share in their story thus far in their life, their struggles with addiction and where they are in their recovery, how they found their recovery. And that's where I tell you that I've learned so much about recovery from all of my guests and how there's not one way to do it. What works for one person may not work for another. And what doesn't work for you might work for me, and so I say stay at it when you're dealing with your recovery. Don't go, well, that didn't work, so I'm just meant to be an addict. No, you're not, man. You're not. Um, you're meant to be a healthy, thriving person who just strives and just excels in life. That's
And
what.
I think another way to put it is you deserve to be that person, right? You
Yes,
deserve to be a healthy, happy person. Doesn't mean we always
yes.
get what we want. And this is going to sound super corny. In my head, I don't even want to say it, but I like this analogy. Like the word fail, if you use it as an acronym, it's your first attempt in learning, right? So there's so many ways to, and that's very cliche. Don't hold that against me. But it's true. It's like failing is something that it's really easy to fall down the first time and be like, well, that's it for me. No more attempts. And I think you just said it best by saying what works for you might not work for the next guy, and what worked for him might not work for the next person. And you got to find what motivates you or what your purpose is, but never feel like you can't try again if you fall down the first time. I think that's a
Yes,
really important point to take from not only addiction in general, but just life in general, right? I mean, you're
yes.
going to fail no matter what. So
And
first
I'm no
attempt in
counselor.
learning.
Yeah, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a peer counselor in any way. Um, so I can't tell you quite a lot of scientific or things like that. But I will say this, that you hear people say that relapse is part of recovery, and I don't like to say that it's part of recovery. I say that relapse can happen, but it doesn't mean that you're done. It doesn't mean that you can't
Mm-hmm.
come back and recover again. So if you're struggling and you're like, man, I want to quit drinking. I quit drinking for 3 months and I started again. Quit again. Quit again. You didn't fail. You start again. You know,
Yeah.
Failure is
And
only a
that's
given
really a
chance.
great way to put it. It don't make it like a life crushing mistake, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
okay, I fell down again, but here we go again. Round two,
Hmm.
round three, round four, as
Yeah.
many as it takes to get to the end goal. And honestly, I think you would probably agree there truly is never an end to sobriety, right? Like when you're fighting a lifelong addiction, it's always going to be like that little piece in the back of your mind. but you just learn how to get through the next minute, the next hour, the next day, the next week. And before you know it, it snowballs into this huge momentum where you look back like you and go, oh my God, it's 9 years, 8 years. It's all of a sudden it becomes bigger than what you ever thought was possible.
I've had that silly thought before where I'm like, I bet you could have just one drink. Oh, I bet you can.
Don't you do it. Don't
But
you do it.
I know you can't. You think so? I know you can't. Just like that.
So you got the little guy on each shoulder?
Yeah, we ain't doing
Yeah.
that. We ain't doing that.
SLiM, I think that you underestimate your power for inspiration, man. You inspire such positivity, and I love this is the deepest I think we've ever talked about your sobriety, other than the fact that you were sober, right? And I love just the words you're sharing right now because you're putting yourself out there. And I love that you do SOS for that same reason, because you're saying, hey, look, like I'm somebody that walked this walk, and I've seen myself talk myself out of it, and I kept going. And finally there was just that one little push that came in the form of a phone call to you and a little birdie who caught you with your hand in the cookie jar and kind of guilted you a little bit, but more instead of guilt, it opened your eyes like, man, maybe I really am struggling with this. So based on just sort of that pushing you over the edge, if you had 60 seconds to tell somebody, or motivate somebody, or words of wisdom, what would you say?
Well, you know when you have a problem. That's the first thing. So to deal with that problem, you have to face it and accept it. You got to be honest about it. You can say, oh, I have a problem. Well, what you going to do about it? So the first thing is, well, I have a problem. Face that problem. Go for it. Don't be afraid of it. And it's not easy to get sober, but surround yourself with friends and family who want to support you on that. Eliminate those bad influences and those things that create that place where you're in your addiction. You gotta change your circle. You gotta change your
Yeah.
lifestyle. But do that. And if you want it, here's the big thing. If you want it more than anything else, it always comes down to this. If you really, really want it, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it because you'll work for it. You'll work for it. But you have to want it, because when you want it, that's when it happens. And if you need help and assistance, you're like, man, I want it, but I can't get out of that place where my addiction is. Maybe you need to go to a 12-step, a rehab, a sober living. But once you want it, you'll go get it. So want it, want that. That's there. My 60 seconds condensed now. Want it. There you go.
So before I even finished asking that question, I knew I had put you in a bad spot because I gave you a time limit. And you don't know this about SLiM in case you've been watching the last 45 minutes, but this man can talk and he's great at it. So I know 60 seconds was cutting it close, but I think that's really, all jokes aside, great advice. It's you got to want it first, right? No one can force you to do something. They can make you go to day one. They can make you go to that rehab class or that first AA meeting or whatever the case is, but you're not going to be sticking to it long term unless you truly decide in here that that's what you want.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people won't want to hear what I say, which is, man, I've been blessed by God, blessed by the Lord to help me so much in my recovery, and that's my faith, my belief. I don't put that on anybody else, but I've been truly blessed, and I thank God every day for giving me another day on this planet, for putting air in my lungs. And
Amen to that, brother. So hey, where can we find SOS online, and when do new episodes drop for your show?
So we are currently looking for a new producer. Basically, our producer just got a new job. And so we're on a short break. We're on a hiatus, but our program, you will find it at facebook.com/SOS sharing our stories, and also at instagram.com/SOS nationwide. And
Okay.
we should be back in about 2 weeks. Literally yesterday, our producer stepped away. And so we're in a transition for a moment. It's been a rough summer for us. We keep having, like, my my dogs got attacked, and I had to take
I
the
remember
rest out.
how's Bacon doing?
He's doing much better. It happened twice. It happened on two shows. One dog got attacked one show, another dog got attacked another show. It has not been my summer for sharing our stories, but yeah, we're not
Well,
by
I'm
any,
happy to hear
not going away.
that
It'll be back.
my homie Bacon is your cutest dog. I love Bacon.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's doing well.
yeah, my
I
dog's
will
good.
also put links to your show somewhere.
Please, thank you.
This will be aired on YouTube and my website, and I'll make sure
Awesome.
there's links around here so we can share that. Slim man, it's so good to talk to you, brother. And like you said, I don't want to wait too long to do this anymore. This reminds me. Last episode I did of my podcast, I ended with the fact that I think it's really important to find somebody in your phone you haven't talked to in a while and reach out. And I'm glad we got to do
Amen.
this. And not only that, but you were sharing such a beautiful story about what it took to get you to where you are. And where can they hear you on the radio if you're in the Mile High City?
I am on Flow 1071. That is Denver's Positive Hip Hop. And I am on Star 1015, uplifting music for the Mile High. And both of those are Christian radio stations. One is Christian hip hop, and the other is contemporary Christian music. So 1071 and 1015.
You heard it here, guys. This is my man SLiM. Senen Rodriguez, all the way from Denver, Colorado. I truly appreciate your time on the Measuring Post, my friend, and send love to everyone in your circle. And let's go get a barbecue or something. Let's go get something to eat.
Man, hug the wife, hug the kids,
Yeah,
and I love you, bro. Thank you so much for having me. Just thank you.
love you, man. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.